Hello everyone. Today we are in the sixth episode with Baklava, and we are gonna talk about the past and the future. How are you, Omid?
Thank you.
Okay, we were talking before as well. We came here together. We are in the library, so we know how are we. So meaningless questions.
Yeah.
So let's start with the past.
Mm.
How was the past? How we see the past as a new generation, like for example before 90s, and then let's say new history, new era, and also we can talk about the future in the next section. So, what do you think that people in your country, or generally according to your experience around the people around you, how they see the past, and how do you see the past?
I think there is a nostalgia definitely for the past. People, maybe even majority of people, think that it was good old days, and especially if you think about my country, it was common at least like 50 years ago, maybe not 20 years ago, but 50 years ago, for people to live in like a very big house with many like rooms, and then they would share that house with their like family members, um, and that was a very different type of setup compared to how you have it in the like this day and age where you have like people living in apartments and pretty separated from their related people and like their loved ones. And I would say the general sentiment is that they people think that they had a better time back then. uh, from my view, I think there are positives and negatives to both situations. Personally, I think I'd be very bored to live like 40 years ago and be in the same setup. So, are we talking about like not having access to the technologies as well that we have right now, or just the moving back to those societal norms only?
The thing for me is I would like to see the 40 years ago. I am not sure if I would like to live at that time. As you said, you don't have access to many things like now, and even we are not aware of that. Okay, we have much more access than the people in the past. But when you listen to the people in the past, although they have nostalgia effect, it creates a specific interest for the past, for the new generation as well, at least for me.
I see.
And how I see it, there is so much to do at that time as well. It's like time travel is also travel, so nothing can stop me if I have the access for the past. I would definitely go for it. I would not like, okay, now I'm gonna. Of course, the war times is different. Middle ages is also different. I understand. I actually many times
How many years ago would you go?
I would go to any time except the war times actually, but I actually do think about how if I would go to the past, would I be able to invent something at that time with my knowledge or not? For example, that's very arguable actually because okay, you think that I can invent the things that we have right now, but when you think that you don't have so many things in the background that you need to invent one by one and then come to the end, and also you can be helpful for the rulers, but if you are helpful to the rulers you can be killed at the same time as well because you are gonna be the power there and they're gonna see you as another opponent. So yeah, I mean it's generally so crazy to think that okay, you can if you can travel to the past. Coming to the new history, I think I would be okay to see the old times. Like for example, for my country, it would be Soviet times. I know that economically it wasn't a good situation, but according to the people from Soviet times, the communication, also the family ties were totally different.
So when you think about the past, it's very past. It's like 100 years ago. I don't think I would enjoy living in any time more than like 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even relate to it.
You lived 10
Because-
years ago.
Yeah, more than. More than
Okay,
above
yeah.
that. Like thinking about like 30 years ago, I would be very bored. And the fact is, I was born 20 something years ago. So until like age of 7, you don't interact with the world that much in terms of like using technology and stuff
You're
like
not
that.
aware of it.
Not aware of it, yeah, is a good term actually. So thinking about like living in 1900, for example, for me is scary. Like with the mind that we have, which is kind of constantly facing a stimuli and like different type of experiences. I'm imagining how you would wake up in 1900 and like you get the most up-to-date information from a newspaper probably,
Mm-hmm.
and
Or radio.
or radio. The pace of life is very like slow, and I think it would be boring, very boring for me. I'd be bored after like 2 hours probably.
But what do you mean by the pace?
I mean the way the amount of information that comes into your brain.
Isn't it also in a good way because your brain doesn't process that much of information?
Yes, but you are not used to it. In our time, it's totally different, and we have become used to this type of setup.
But for example, the Greek philosophers were thinking that in order to thinking about philosophy, you need a free time, and they called it as schola. And I think nowadays we don't have free time thing. If you have free time, you can think more and also be creative more. Now we are only processing the information that we have, and since it's too much information, I don't think that we are even down to create something new, even to invent something or think out of the border. It's so many things. So I think it would be interesting experience. I don't know for the whole lifelong. That's another story, yeah. But I also feel that okay, it would be interesting to see.
I get the argument for like 1 hour a day. You sit like in silence or think and stuff like that. I do meditation myself and I enjoy it. But thinking about like not multiple hours in a day, like having the whole day at such a slow pace, it's like a very strange experience in my mind. So yeah, I don't think I would like it.
I think how we can create analogy for the past to see some countries that are coming from a bit of behind of the technology, that they still keep the family ties, they still keep some additional more religious background and keeping their own historical background and isolating their own environment from the social media, technology, the news that comes to every day to us, like the most part of the world, let's say. And it's kind of scary if you think that you travel a bit to the past. Like, for example, sometimes travelers say, okay, I feel like I'm in 50 years ago. To those countries, it looks scary, but I think when I watch those travel videos, I think the communication with the people, how they are friendly, how they're hospitable with you, how they're inviting you to, okay, come on in, and you can eat here. It's like they don't have a scare of, okay, this is a strange person and something bad can happen. Yeah, these things are a bit different, and I think differences create a colorful experience that I enjoy those differences.
I see the point, but I think that's mostly depends on the type of society in general. It's not just because of technology and stuff like that. Like Western societies have been individualistic for the time that we know, and then the Eastern ones have been collective similarly. So it's not just a matter of technology. Technology plays a role, I think, definitely, because it's having that effect of people spending much more time alone and interacting with their phones instead of real connections, even in those Eastern societies. But I think the main factor comes from the actual background of these countries rather than being an effect of the social media.
But I think before the Industrial Revolution, for example, probably the Western society was very similar to some Eastern society communities, like what they have now in the culture, hospitality, like social responsibilities. I think we feel it in Sweden. They have like some kind of social system, government, and also which they say that it's coming from Vikings as well, because they didn't have hierarchy inside their um, uh, the society, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they probably had before even the Industrial Revolution.
About West in general, I really don't have information. Like I don't know how it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I assume actually it was not very collective.
Mm-hmm.
Based on like how we have learned, at least the accounts that I'm aware of are usually accounts that relate to economy, like the feudalism and those areas. I don't really get the feeling that it was a very type of society oriented mindset that people had. Actually, it was much more about survival than it is now.
Yeah.
And also in Sweden, maybe you hear that it comes from the Viking culture, but the current political and like economical setup, I think it's actually very modern, and it is something that's intentionally designed. It's not just bit by bit created through their culture. It fits their culture definitely, but I think it is very modern, and they have really sat down and thought, okay, we're gonna do, and this is the way that they have designed it.
They just integrated their culture to the new ideology.
Yeah, so I don't think it's like just natural
No,
continuation of the culture.
Of course, it was affected by the philosophies, the European philosophies.
So yeah, I don't think that's the case. But maybe even if you look at the philosophy of the East,
Mm-hmm.
you can see that like collective spirits, right?
Yep. Coming to the economical perspective, for example, I was watching one Instagram reel. The guy bought a house in San Francisco for 40K 50 years ago, and now the same house costs $3 million. And they asked the guy, "Do you think that it's worth it, 3 million?" He says no. That's also what changed over the time. I think totally according to the statistics, the graphs, whatever. The well-being of the people improved a lot for years, but now currently accommodation and the low, like basic standards for living got a lot harder for the young ones and the young generation. That also brings the nostalgia back from the past, because for example our grandfathers, grandmothers could able to get like very easy access, at least for the accommodation and basic stuff for their living, like food was cheap compared to now, the housing was very cheap, which is one of the main things, especially for Soviet times. It was like a main nuke of the economy, that okay, they need to provide accommodation for everyone there. So what do you think about it generally?
I think that's actually a very good starting point to understand why you have more of this nostalgia in countries with less developed economies. Because again, when you look at the countries that you have a good economy going on, like they have a good GDP per capita and access to housing and so on and so forth, there's much less feeling of people thinking about the past. And it's not at least an active thing, because I think in some parts of the world you see people constantly talking about it, and it's part of the public discourse. Like they constantly bring back memories from old times. But at least in the West, it's not part of my experience to see people talking about, oh, we had very good days in the past. And as again you mentioned, I think real estate and like housing is probably the biggest contributor. In one sense, I think we have more access to buying goods, like access to goods, compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and so on. And also, I think now it's easier to make it big, like create business, or like have your own like startup or anything like that, compared to again 10 years ago and 20 years ago. It's much more like democratized the access to resources. But the real estate and the housing market is much in a much like difficult situation. It's very hard to get on the ladder to like have a house. So these are all factors. Like if you have if you can imagine future in a way that's positive, and like you have high hopes for the future, definitely you're less of a nostalgic person. You think about what is to come rather than going back to what was like in the past. So that definitely contributes, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. They say that if you don't have the future, you are stuck in the past.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a natural function of the brain as well.
Yeah, I mean, um, coming to the current topic, for example, social media, I think like it started with the internet revolution, and then the social media came to our life.
Mhm.
It changed so many things in communication, in society, the family ties, the friendships.
Mhm.
Um, I think, for example, this is very natural because from the past, the way of communication changed over the time.
Mhm.
They were communicating with letters, sending it with dots, and then they changed to telegraphs, and now we use telegram, for example. Uh, I think it's very natural, and over the time, every next generation just found guilty the next generation or the previous generation. It's just a fight between the generations.
Mhm.
Every generation is applicable for that. Even so many Eastern philosophers also say that this new generation, like the 1400s, they say, oh, this new generation will destroy the whole world. And the next generation also says, it's common sense to find guilty someone from the another generation because of the cultural differences. Technology also affects, and it's not only technology, it's science. We can call it basically the science. When the science improves, it can be the humanitarian science because the new ideologies, new philosophies comes to scene, and also for economical science, new economical models comes in. The rulers start using it or misusing those economical models, and also for the technology, of course, like industrial revolution, internet revolution. What do you think that in the smooth path to the future, on the meantime, how it's gonna be with the social media?
I mean, that's an interesting question. Uh, I'm not really sure how social media is gonna evolve in the coming years because I think they've already got a very good grip of how to get people hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, you're looking from the other side. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
like they're exploiting the best practices in psychology, in human psychology, to get the most screen time and naturally the most value out of each user. So if there's a change to be had, it's either like invention of new paradigms, like more intensive experiences, I would say, like a new type of social media, like what we had with like shorts, which became a new medium. You have like much less shorter videos, and they are like packed with information and visual stimuli. Or it could be from the societal response when you have like the government and the society pushing back against what's happening. To be honest, I can imagine the first one, like technological changes and changes in the paradigms related to the softwares and like new companies coming up. I really can't see that much change on the society part. So I think it will continue to be mostly the same, except for maybe if we move into the era of like artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna have implications, I believe, on everything, including social media, um, which you are going to experience much more well-targeted ads, and also so for the audience who might not be familiar with the field of artificial intelligence, AGI is artificial general intelligence, and it is the type of intelligence that, similar to humans, can do varied tasks. It's not just capable of doing a specific task, so it's able to
Very
perform
close to the human abilities, let's say.
exactly. It's able to perform various tasks at human level, and eventually it will surpass humans in most of those tasks. So if you have that kind of ability and you think about the business model of social media right now, the importance of human users gets lower and lower. because the ones that are creating value in economy are not humans anymore. Like if you have AGI, it's gonna push the economical situation as well, right? It's gonna be the like engine of creating wealth.
I have a bit of argument for it. I think what people like about the social media is people's sincerity and their inner life, because they have access to other people's private life somehow, and that's what people love about it. I don't think that AI will affect the social media content that much, because people still will crave for the other people's private lives, and they will still look forward to be one of them, let's say. They are not gonna want, okay, I wanna be part of AI.
What do you mean? Like, what is your imagination? In my view, I'm thinking about like AI generated content that's specifically targeted at what you like.
If there is a person there which brings a story, it doesn't matter how it's created, if it is edited by AI or if it's edited by human, yes. Yeah, I mean, technological part, yes, but the content, the story part, I don't think it's possible to be changed.
I see. So you're a skeptic that of the fact that AI would be able to generate the same quality of like videos, same stories, same like.
Yeah. I don't think
that's a point of argument. I believe we're moving towards that very fast. You already have like those in type of accounts that are generated by AI, and they have like a couple thousands followers, and they're making money.
But they cannot hold, like, you can go to the feed, you can make money, you can make like one of the 100 videos can make a big change trend. Okay, create a trend, you can do it, but you're not gonna have consistent subscribers that come to, oh, this is, for example, Sunday evening, I need to watch one guy. You're not gonna say it for the AI. I mean, of course, if you bring mass production for the videos and then you bring some other creators content, merge them and bring to the society for the social media users, yes, it will affect. But that's also the copyright thing, because they're gonna use the other people's labor to bring those interesting stuff.
I see.
If they don't use, they are not gonna succeed in it. So yeah.
Okay, I see. Well, I think the example that I brought here is actually real. Like there was a few, actually more than one, examples of influencers that are created by AI. They're not usually video based, like they post their images on Instagram, but they have thousands of followers and they're current accounts, so they're constantly creating posts, not totally unsupervised, so they are like made by humans using AI. But I don't think that this jump from human supervised AI generated content to unsupervised generated content would be that big. I think that's coming in like maybe in 2025 even. So to me, it's kind of not something that I'd be skeptic of.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what's in front of us, what we think the next 5 to 10 years are going to look like, primarily from an economic perspective, because I think that's going to be the biggest change that we have. I can start with my own view. I mentioned AGI in the past section, and I think it's going to be the biggest factor in terms of how the economy changes. Humans are not going to be any longer the bearers of wealth and like value generation. Computers are going to take over in terms of creating economical value. And the question becomes what humans do in that world. I'm not going to move into my own opinion. I want to hear you first.
I don't think that it will help to share anyone's wealth. It will just affect mainly to the middle class people or lower class people with which are dependent on their incomes, like from their jobs or something like that. I don't think that you can even take someone's wealth. I mean, of course, the wealth will change based on the stock price, what's happening in the companies and what they have in the stocks, what they invest in for the future. But I don't think that the people that who has the big part of the wealth, what they say, like a top 1% of the wealth of in the population, since they also predicted that AGI is coming, so they're going to invest more in AGI. But how I see it, the political institutes should find a way to preserve the humans and their day-to-day life, their income, their basic needs, uh, with the generated income from the AGIs even. For example, if there is income, it should be somehow separated over the operators of the AGI, for example, because AGIs should start with working with the humans because they need some supervision over them. Coming to how far are we from the implementation of the AGI, we have argument here with you, but the thing is, I don't think that it's near that much as you say. For example, implementation 25, I totally disagree with it.
I don't say 25.
Whatever, like I don't see it in near 5 years.
Okay.
Because I think it can be implemented after it's surpassing all the political boundaries that they totally will have, because it's gonna be another revolution. I don't know how they're gonna call it AGI revolution or something like that, but if there was an industrial revolution, internet revolution 4.0, that's gonna be the other revolution. And totally the economical systems and the social systems that settle down right now, they should somehow either integrate or they just reject it. I don't think that the second option will happen, but for the first option, it will take probably at least 5 years more, even it can be implemented and it's ready to just dive into it. So some companies we can start using it in totally liberal economies, but I don't see it in everywhere in the world that will try to preserve their humans, like their societies, from those revolution, to at least integrate smoothly and don't suffer much.
Okay. So I think the point about just a small fraction of companies having access to AGI is very valid, especially if it's commercial, because we're not really thinking right now. I think the consensus is that probably if we reach AGI, it's not going to be through an open source system. It's going to be a commercial system. So you have, it seems at least now that you have one company, a front runner, and then you have some other companies reaching AGI with like a few months or like 6 months difference, or a year or something like that. So that's a very important point. But supposing that we are there, and I think that definition of AGI, which is like reaching a level of intelligence that is equal to humans in different areas, not narrow, that's probably a few years away from us. Probably if we are thinking like about the soonest, it could be 2 years from now. The like most far prediction I can think of is 5 years, and that is in the case that we somehow magically face a roadblock that we didn't see, which doesn't seem like the case, to be honest to me. Like, we are going on and we are scaling well. Everything seems very smooth on the path to better models, more capable models. But what happens? Let's forget about like the exact number of years that we're away from it. I think first we have a problem with integration, as you mentioned, and that problem with integration doesn't come from the society's inability or like the time it takes for the society to integrate it. Actually, it comes from computational restrictions, because almost all models run on NVIDIA GPUs, and we actually have a restriction on the number of GPUs that we can produce. NVIDIA is trying to like improve their production, but that's going to be something that takes a long time for us to be able to produce as many chips as required to be able to provide for many like companies and many like corporations in different countries. So that is one restriction. We have a hardware restriction. Even if we reach AGI by one company or two company, being able to scale it is important, because at first it's not going to be efficient. Efficiency increases across time. Our first goal is to just reach that level of intelligence, and then we're going to try to like fit it in smaller systems, just as we experienced with previous models.
There is also research in the hardware with low computational power. So, for example, China is not allowed to use NVIDIA GPUs.
Not
right
ones
now.
advanced ones.
Yeah, but DeepSeek didn't use any of them, but still made it to
No,
work.
DeepSeek used NVIDIA
They
chips.
they reject it. They don't.
No,
They don't
they
admit that.
exactly mentioned in the paper that they used
Not A800.
2000
Not
H100s.
H100.
Yeah.
They used it.
H800, not H100.
Oh, okay.
And the difference is like I'm not going to go into the like details, but the difference is in the memory pathways and those kind of things. They use a lower level programming language compared to what's common, which is CUDA. They use PTX, which is still a language by NVIDIA, and they bypass some of those limitations by improving the processing. They basically remove some of the limitations in terms of processing information when all the data is coming. So they changed the processing paradigm to process as they come in. So it doesn't wait for batches of data.
Like buffer.
Kind of buffer. They basically process on fly instead of like waiting.
Real-time processing.
Yes. So going back to what I was saying, imagine if we like resolve that hardware change as well, and we are able to scale to all companies, and they are producing wealth at the scale that's like comparable to human generation. I think that's the point when the actual argument begins, and there is this notion, it's called universal basic income, UBI. And the idea is that when we are creating enough wealth to give all the people a certain amount of money each month, maybe we can do that. Like we tax the machines actually. The wealth that's created by the machines is taxed, and then we redistribute a part of that wealth. So everybody gets basics of their life, and then they can pursue still what they like. They can go do arts or do like different types of stuff, but at least their life is provided for the basics. So that's an idea. I mean, I think it heavily depends on the governments.
And also wealth accumulators by this AGI.
That's also true. That's why like
that's more
policy
scary
is very
part
important.
actually.
I believe it's very like challenging. It's not guaranteed, to be honest. Even if governments like start making regulations today that okay, we like put down a definition of AGI, and then we check every release of an artificial intelligence model to check whether it's AGI or not, like with certain I don't know, people who are experts in the field and with the definition that we have, and only then allow it to be released or to be used. Even then there is a challenge, and there's like a chance that we can't implement policies correctly, let alone with the current paradigm, which is like less supervised by the government. So I think there are challenges, but it's an ideal situation, and if it turns out to be like that, I think most of humanity benefits from artificial intelligence.
That's very early to say. I think that,
yes,
it depends on the government bodies and also the business side as well. And I'm not sure about that, like how the governments will manage it, because I think still the governments are not aware of the technology as much as the technological people. The businesses, they can somehow mislead or misuse these unknowledgeable institutes by the government. Although we say that government has so much data in their hand, we know it, but still to process that they need a special education, research going on for that, and some countries won't have even the introduction for AGIs. So for them, even it's harder to implement some policies that, and also switching to universal guaranteed basic income. That still it's gonna be hard.
Questionable.
Yeah, it's a big thing. They're gonna change the whole economical situation, economical ideology behind them, and why they will need, for example, the politicians, why they will need the parties. That's coming to other questions, and also no one wants to leave their power. So and also the danger is also can be seen by the politicians in different governments. It doesn't matter where, they're gonna lose their job.
Yes, I agree, and I think there's a tendency from like the side of companies to ensure like society and also the government that we're going to do it safely. All of these like companies have safety teams. In some of the companies, the safety teams are much more vocal, and they are like getting more compute. The compute is probably the most important resource in AI companies, which basically is the number of chips and like the amount of time they get with each chip, NVIDIA chip. But they get more compute, and they're able to like interpret the models and work through them. We have even like some areas of research, mechanical interpretability, which try to really understand how the model works, like the nuts and bolts of these models. You have companies like Anthropic, which are very focused on safety. You have companies like OpenAI, which are reasonably like investing in this field. But I think the safety is actually taken more seriously by these companies as opposed to like as compared to governments. So I don't like have a certain opinion here if it's better or worse.
Okay.
Because it's debatable.
I agree.
These are more better experts compared to like other like people who
Yes.
could be in the government. But
coming to the last question of today, can you describe the 10 years later from now? How do you see the future? Just for example, a couple of sentences.
I think this is the biggest difference we have, right? Because
we'll see.
Okay.
After 10 years, if we watch this video, we can compare how we're seeing the world after 10 years and how it's actually.
Okay. I think there are two possible scenarios. Good ending, bad
No.
ending.
Just
I really don't
you
know.
have one chance.
I really don't know.
You need to say that I think that, okay, I'll go ahead.
There are branches to me.
Okay, I'll go ahead, just one option. If it happens,
Nice.
interesting. If it doesn't happen, it was interesting. So I will, I think after 10 years, it's gonna be more of globalization.
Okay.
I think it will take all over the world. The people will move, I think, more safely than now to other countries. And I don't think that AGI will be effective in that society. I don't see AI being a big part of the population. Of course, it will be a part of it, but very small chunk, as a supporter tool, let's say. And the people's life will be probably very similar to what's it now. The change will probably be in the rhetorics of the politicians, probably. A very positive approach, I think, but that's how I see it.
Okay, I still have two branches.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the positive one is we reach AGI, then we reach ASI, super intelligence, artificial super intelligence.
After 10 years.
Before 10 years.
Okay.
And at that time, basically all the economy is, there's a question actually about whether we will be able to scale robotics as good as we have scaled like intelligence. But I'm skeptical about that. So I'm not sure about the blue collar works if we are able to automate them. But I think some of them probably, like we will at least be able to develop robots for specific jobs, at least. However, invention or like development of ASI would help in developing the research in robotics as well. So that could be accelerated as well. But imagine just thinking about like the white collar work. I think almost all of the economic output, or like more than 80% of this, it would come from machines and AGI and ASI, more specifically. In the good scenario, we're gonna tax the machines.
And we'll have UBI.
And we'll have the UBI.
Okay.
So most of people are going to be much better off than they are right now.
Okay.
Because the speed of creation of wealth is going to be much higher. It's not just they replace us. They replace us at a better level.
You also think that wealth will be shared, but in a different way.
This is in the good scenario.
Yes. Okay. Coming to your pessimistic scenario.
In the pessimistic scenario, you will have one company or two or three which reached AGI, and I think it's an opinion that I recently heard Yoshio Bengio, which is a very prominent researcher in artificial intelligence. He was talking about this account, and it's possible. You will have a few companies that reach AGI, and they're not going to share the AGI with others, obviously, probably. They start creating new companies, maybe even, and they generate wealth for themselves, and they're not bound to any rule. Like, they can just continue creating more wealth. They're ahead of every other competitor, so they're gonna knock out every competitor, and you'll have a very small number of companies that control the economy, and other people are losing jobs.
So you see the anarchy.
I'm not really sure how would the society respond to that case. Whether it would be bound in some time, or it will continue to escalate.
I don't think that the current government structure will be destroyed, even if that happens. And I also think that...
How about modification?
Modification is possible, but the structure as a skeleton will be at least the same. They will just adjust many things, just use as plugins and then add-ons. There won't be some destruction inside. And what I assume that it's gonna even be more effective, not only with AGI, for the second or third world countries, and they will take a good pace after 10 years. Since now, even after economical wars, let's say, that they've started, I think especially Eastern countries will use the advantage, and then after 10 years, I think we will see as a political balance, we will see a bit of difference.
You mean
different than
in development of AI? In terms of development of AI?
It will develop, it will affect as well, because it's technology, but I don't think that it will affect tremendously.
I see. Interesting.
Okay, so that was it for us. How we see the past and how we predict the future. I hope everything will be good for the humanity. For the future. We should be positive. I hope that I also have some pessimistic predictions for the future that I didn't mention. I hope they are not gonna happen for you as well. I am okay using AGI if UBI is coming in. Yep. Thank you so much for watching us.
Thank you for joining us.
Have a nice day.